Good evening. Let it be a good evening in its spiritual sense, an evening in which the word good is not a human label but an intimation of presence. An evening of I am. Not an evening of slogans, not an evening of trying to pump ourselves up with declarations, but an evening of meeting that which has always been here, closer than the breath that is breathing you, waiting only for recognition. I am not as the sound upon the lips, not as a clever formula, but as the name of the life within you that neither began with your birth nor will end with your last breath. I am as presence. And I want to interrupt myself right at the beginning because I know the habit we bring to a meeting like this. We have learned to take these great words and hitch them to a very small cart. I am strong. I am healed. I am prosperous. Do you see how subtle that is? We place a royal robe around a very frightened figure and then ask the robe to do our work. No. The strange thing is that the name I am was given not to polish our personality, but to dissolve it as a source of power. I do not mean that it leaves you powerless. I mean that it uncovers the true power that has never been yours or mine as a possession, and yet forever lives as the life of us. Beautiful. Now let us state the promise simply, because I am in a position to say this with some authority, not because I am clever, but because the years have shown it again and again. When I am is no longer a personal assertion, but a realized presence. Healing becomes natural. Not dramatic, not noisy, not the kind of thing that requires a trumpet. Natural. Why? Because the burden of authorship is lifted off the little me that thinks it must fix, correct, supply, and save, and is returned to the one presence that invisibly constitutes your being. When the sense of I changes locations, do you hear that? When the sense of I changes locations from the person trying to do the work to the presence living the life, the flow begins. It does the work. You witness. And I will forestall a misunderstanding because I have seen it come in with the first breeze of inspiration. I am not introducing you to positive thinking, nor am I inviting you to live on cloud nine. I do not mean that you will float above the very real calls of children, or the office, or a body that sometimes hurts, or a bank account that sometimes groans. If that is your expectation, excuse me, you will be disappointed. What we are about is more practical than that. We are learning an inner shift that bears outer fruit, not by denying human need, but by relocating cause. You will not be asked to pretend hunger is fullness or fear is courage. You will be asked to discover the presence in which hunger is fed and fear is dissolved, not by your cleverness but by the nature of that presence. Then, and only then, do we find that business grows harmonious, the body yields, the home grows quiet, not because we hammered at conditions, but because the tree showed what root it had. So here is the governing question for this whole evening, and indeed for everything that will follow on these nights. How does I am move from words on the lips to realized presence within? How do we journey from the language of God to the life of God? I am going to let you in on the secret at once, so there is no suspense and no mystification. The pathway is always the same. From language to an inner turning, from the inner turning to a moment of silent contact, and from that contact to evidence, peace first, then harmony unfolding as needed. We will not strain the mind, we will not analyze problems, we will not dignify appearances by dissecting them. We will turn, we will wait, and we will let the Father that seeth in secret reward openly. Do you doubt it? Stay long enough to taste one instant of the peace that is not yours, and see if the outer does not begin to reassemble around that center. Now, why begin with I am? Because identity is the taproot of all prayer. As long as I means this personal bundle of memories and anxieties and plans, good plans, sometimes very noble plans, Healing will always feel like a project, like labor undertaken by a self who must get it right or suffer the consequences. And then prayer becomes pleading, and affirmation becomes a kind of pep talk for a weary soul. But when I am is recognized as the very life of you, impersonal, universal, indivisible, then something profound happens. The anxiety over outcomes begins to loose its hold, because the one who worried is no longer in charge. In other words, agency is quietly reversed. The practitioner's part is not to fix life, but to yield to the life that is omnipresent and already whole. And in that yielding, which can take place in a breath, the yoke of healing is lifted from your shoulders. You will discover that the impossible work you assigned yourself was never yours. I know well how the mind wants steps, techniques, diagrams. It wants to bargain. If I say this phrase, if I hold it long enough, will I not coax God into my corner? No, no. God is not in a corner. God is the room. Presence does not need coaxing. Presence needs recognition. So our technique, if you must have the word, is very simple and very holy. We use words to turn, then we let words go. We allow the word I am to do what it was given to do, to bring attention to the one who is here. We close the inner door, not as escape from the world, but as entrance into the life within the world. We consent to a silence that is not vacancy but fullness, and then we wait, sometimes 30 seconds, sometimes 3 breaths. And in that little pause, something begins that thinking has never accomplished for you. The first evidence is not a thunderclap. It is peace. Not your peace, not a mood, not a trick of the nervous system. The peace of presence announcing without speech, I am here. Keep this with you as we proceed. You will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. If tonight we can agree to the humility of that, if we can agree to retire the personal I from the task of healing and let I am be what it is, the rest will follow of itself. Let us then devote this evening to that reversal. Let us ask, not with lips, but with willingness, how shall I move from saying I am to living as presence? And let us expect, quietly and without drama, that the answer will not be argued to us but shown in the stillness, and then in the fruitage that finds us when we are not looking. Let us look plainly, kindly, without condemnation, at what makes this so hard for us at the beginning. The trouble with the personal I is not that it is evil. It is only small, and because it is small, it assumes tasks too heavy for its shoulders, and then calls that burden my life. The hidden assumption behind most of our praying, behind most of our striving and self-improvement, is very simple. A little I down here, trying to reach a big God up there in order to fix a big problem out there. And then we wonder why prayer feels like shouting across a canyon, and why the echo returns to us as fatigue. I know this one from the inside. I did not know how to pray. I did not know what to do. I was sincere, very sincere. The longing was real. It hurt sometimes. It ached like homesickness. But my method, if you could call it that, was a beggar's method. I tried to move God with many words. I tried to make up with intensity what I lacked in understanding. And I will tell you quite honestly, it did not yield peace. It yielded a certain exhaustion and then a private embarrassment that perhaps I had failed God and God had failed me. Do you know that feeling? Excuse me, I know some of you do. Now, let me introduce you to the imposter who was running that show. The personal sense of I is a marvelous actor. It will stand in your place and claim authorship for everything. My health, my supply, my relationships, my success, my reputation. It will take the credit on a sunny day and accept the blame in a storm. It will set schedules for your healing and deadlines for your peace. It is the foreman on a job site where it did not design the building, does not own the land, and cannot control the weather, and yet imagines that with enough shouting the structure will go up. And then, at the first crack in the wall, it collapses. not because it is wicked, but because the load was never its to bear. Watch how it operates. It watches the clock because it believes time heals. It counts pills because it believes numbers save. It rehearses conversations because it believes words conquer. It makes a budget and calls it safety. It tightens a jaw and calls it courage. It prays the loudest when it is the most frightened, and it mistakes volume for faith. And when results do not submit to its program, it doubles the effort and calls that devotion. No, that is not devotion. That is desperation wearing a religious coat. The cost of this personal I am, and I am choosing that phrase pointedly, is dear. The personal I fastens the holy name onto a condition and fuses identity with it. I am sick. I am afraid. I am lacking. I am depressed. Do you see what happens? The condition gains the dignity of a self. And then, because we love the only self we believe we have, we begin to defend the condition. My arthritis, my anxiety, my scarcity. We comfort it, we feed it, we talk about it to our friends so that it will not feel alone. The frightened I is seeking safety, and so it hugs the very thing that hurts. And then we come to prayer and ask God to take away our me. No wonder there is strain. We are asking for subtraction while fiercely holding possession. I am going to interrupt myself here to make something very clear. I am not asking you to deny your symptoms, nor am I asking you to pretend that fear is not fear. I am inviting you to notice who says I. The whole weight of struggle is tied to that pronoun. As long as I stands for a private person, born on a certain day with a certain face, a certain story, a certain bank account, healing will be approached as human labor. Techniques will multiply. Timelines will be negotiated. Promises will be bartered. And faith, which is meant to be rest, will become another name for strain. At this point, someone will say, "But if I do not assert I am strong, how will I become strong?" Let me let you in on the secret again. When the little I borrows I am for its affirmations, it is not praying, it is performing. It is attempting to fasten divinity onto personality. And because personality is changeable, conditions continue to sway it. One day the words seem to work, the next day they don't. And we are back on the treadmill with a slightly more spiritual vocabulary. The whole premise is wrong. God is not out there to be summoned. Presence is not a power to be hired. The kingdom is within you, and the movement always is from inner revelation to outer fruit, never the other way around. Do you begin to see why I can say, with some authority born of experience, that our first shift is not from illness to health or from lack to abundance? It is from a personal identity to spiritual beingness. Only then do we find that health appears, supply appears, harmony appears, not as trophies earned by a brave little self, but as the natural expression of what has been realized within. I can of mine own self do nothing is not a humbling metaphor. It is the pronouncement that ends the impostor's reign. It returns authorship to the one who never left. How do we start? Not by fighting the personal sense. Fighting only tightens its grip. We start by exposing it to light. Let us do it simply. Right where you are, notice the I that is tense, the I that is worried about tomorrow's appointment, the account to be paid, the loved one far away. Do not scold it, just watch. Ask quietly, almost as a whisper within yourself. Who is this I who worries? Is it the breath-made flesh that came on a birthday and will go on a date yet to be written? Or is there, beneath that, behind it, before it, an I that is? Not began, not will be, but is. If you close your eyes for a moment, and you may do that now if you wish, you will notice a small loosening in the solar plexus, a dropping of the shoulders. Thoughts do not stop. They lose their edge. And a hint, only a hint perhaps, of peace that is not yours, begins to announce itself. This is not the personal I making a mood. This is presence making itself known where you had been standing in the doorway. Now remember this. You will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. And to know God is to shift the center from the foreman to the owner, from the actor to the life, from I, trying to I am, being. When we make that turn, even imperfectly, even for 5 seconds, the labor lightens, not because the outer has changed yet, but because the one who was carrying it has stepped aside. Healing ceases to be a project. It becomes a revelation little by little, and then, at times, suddenly. The peace comes first to certify that God is on the field. The fruit follows because the tree cannot help itself. We will, in a few moments, move deeper into this relocation of cause, into the discovery that where I am, God is, and that the kingdom was never absent from the place you are standing. But for now, let this diagnosis be your comfort, not your condemnation. If healing has felt like struggle, it is only because a loving but frightened I tried to do divine work with human hands. We are going to let those hands rest. We are going to let the presence be presence. And you will see, oh yes, you will see, that when the center is shifted, the circumference will quietly rearrange itself, and what you had been pushing at will begin to yield of its own accord. Let us take the next step together, very simply, very honestly, and let us let these words be more than words. Where I am, God is. Not where I hope to be, not where a saint might be, not where I shall arrive if I improve myself another inch or two. Where I am, God is. The kingdom is not at the end of a pilgrimage, nor is it hidden behind a veil of ritual. The kingdom is within you. He is closer to you than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. And I must interrupt my own sentence to clear away the habit of years. Do not, please, try to reach God. God is not at a distance to be reached. God is the presence to be recognized. Do you feel what that does to the whole architecture of our trouble? If God is not out there to be persuaded, and if God is not in a future to be attained, then the very mode of problem-solving we have honored begins to dissolve. In this world, we are taught that outer conditions are cause, and we are reaction machines to those causes. This fails us because it is not true. The outer scene is effect. First cause is always the state of consciousness, the realized presence, the contact within. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. Say it softly in your heart and let it reframe your morning, your medicine cabinet, your meeting with the bank. The secret is the cause, the open is the effect. I am in a position to say this with some authority, not because I have mastered life, but because I have witnessed what follows realization. When inner contact is made, events rearrange themselves without our micromanagement. Supply increases with no extra cleverness on the ledger. Relationships lose their edges without our speeches. The body yields without our argument. What prompted it? What gave it the impulse? I do not know in the way the intellect longs to know, but I know in the way peace certifies. The Father within doeth the works. There is an interior government, and it governs. Let me put this in the language of Christ so that you do not think I am introducing an exotic notion. Christ is not a surname and not a museum piece from a holy past. Christ is a word for the awareness of God as the life of your own being, the living I am that whispers within, I and the Father are one. Christ consciousness is not admiration of a story. It is participation in a presence. When that awareness dawns, even a little, it becomes the new location of cause. The prayer then is not make something out there change, but let thy will, thy nature, thy wholeness show forth as this situation. And it does because cause and effect are now rightly ordered, the invisible recognized, the visible conformed. Now I want to handle a common fear while it is small, because left alone, it grows teeth. Someone says, but if I stop treating the outer as cause, Will I not neglect my responsibilities? Will I not fall into passivity? No, no. You will, for the first time, act from center instead of from panic. You will answer the phone. Yes, you will see the doctor. You will pay the bill. You will keep the appointment. But you will do these as the branches of a rooted tree, not as the thrashing of a severed limb. The difference is not in the motion. The difference is in the motive power. The motive power is no longer fear. It is presence recognized. When the inner is right, the outer is guided. There is no escapism in this. There is entry into the life within the life you are living. Let us feel the cadence of truth. Whether you are well or unwell, presence is not absent. Whether your purse is full or thin, presence is not absent. Whether the world calls this hour peaceful or troubled, presence is not absent. If I mount to heaven of success, or make my bed in the hell of discouragement, presence is here. What comes and goes are our moods, our stories, our weather. What abides is the I am that never changes and never travels, because all traveling is within it. Learn to rest in that, and you will see the parade of conditions become obedient to a new command, not your command, but the quiet insistence of realized truth. Let me give you a picture. The personal sense is a thermometer. It reads and reacts. The realized I am is a thermostat. It sets and governs. The moment you turn within and establish recognition, Father, thou art here. I need not inform thee, persuade thee, or move thee. I need only consent. The setting changes. There may still be wind against the window, but the house grows warm. Outsiders looking in will say, how fortunate the weather favored them. You will know better. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. We must get used to speaking inwardly as we would to a beloved who is actually present because he is. This is the practicality of Christ consciousness, an inner conversation that is mostly listening, a willingness to be still without an agenda, and a readiness to let peace do what effort has not done for you in years. And yes, sometimes the mind will chatter, and sometimes it will ask, what now? What next? Let it. You are not trying to coerce the mind. You are establishing a new location for causation by your consent to presence. In that consent, even 5 seconds of it, the very roots of the problem begin to loosen, not because you took the shovel to them, because light reached them. I am going to ask you to try a very small thing, right here where you sit, because theory is dry bread without water. Do not strain, just acknowledge. Where I am, God is, not in words only. Let the words point inward like a finger pointing to your own heart, to your own breath, to the quiet behind your eyes. Where I am, God is. Do you notice, even slightly, that you are not alone in yourself? Do you notice a softening at the edges? Do you notice the thought traffic losing its right of way? That is not your achievement. That is contact. And that contact is cause. Rest there and you will see what follows. Now remember this and keep it precious in its simplicity. When cause is relocated within, striving loses its appeal because it loses its premise. You do not have to force harmony. You have to recognize presence. You do not have to manufacture answers. You have to become still enough to hear what is already present. You do not have to lift life. You have to stop putting your shoulders under it. The work from here forward becomes childlike, turning, listening, consenting. Turn from the object to the subject. Listen for the still small tone that is not voice and yet communicates. Consent to be lived by that which is already your life. And I will tell you what you will find as you practice. Peace comes first, and with it a curious confidence that is not bravado, a knowing without reasons. Then, as day follows night, the open rewards appear in their own order, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but always as expression, never as bribes won from deity. You begin to trust the order because you have trusted the source. And when the old impulse to take back control rises, and it will, gently, kindly, almost with a smile, you will say within, I can of mine own self do nothing, not as defeat, but as relief, because you have discovered the new location of cause, and you have learned how to turn toward it. From that turning, everything essential unfolds. Let us lean now, very gently and very steadily, into that sentence which sounds like surrender and turns out to be authority. I can of mine own self do nothing. If you hear it as a confession of defeat, you have missed the door it opens. If you hear it as a letting go of a false prerogative, you are standing at the threshold of the only power there is, the human sense. This mixture of memory, desire, fear, and good intention does not perform healing. It cannot, because it is an effect trying to make itself cause. The life within you, which is not personal and not private, is already wholeness, already order, already abundance of itself. The practitioner's part is never to fix life. The practitioner's part is to yield to the life that fixes. Now, I must interrupt myself because someone hears yield and imagines a couch and a sigh and a long retreat from responsibility. No, no, yielding as we are using it is not passivity. It is spiritual alertness. It is the alertness of a sailor who has ceased splashing at the ocean and has become exquisitely attentive to the wind. It is the attentiveness of a gardener who has finally stopped pulling on the plant and has begun to tend the soil and the light. When the mind yields its frantic authorship, the soul wakes. It attends the inner sanctuary. It remembers, Father, thou art here, and in that remembering it becomes receptive, not inert, poised, not lazy, listening, not lax. This is why the Master did not say, be idle and know, but be still and know. Stillness is not idleness. It is a directed, reverent awareness of presence. And here, let me let you in on a secret that will save you years of holy fatigue, if you will let it. Personal effort in spiritual work is often disguised worship of the problem. The more we measure it, check it, discuss it, research it, count it, compare it, and test it, the more attention, the more power, the more reality we lend to an appearance. We bow before it every hour with our thermometer of thought. We bring it offerings of what if and suppose and last time it did this. We circulate its name among our friends as if to gather a congregation to its altar. And then, after granting it dignity with our attention, we ask God to dethrone it. No, the first dethronement takes place at the level of attention. That is why we say, and I am going to repeat it until it engraves itself across the forehead of your practice, you will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. For when you know God, you have known the cause, and the effect will bear witness to that knowing. Do not take me to mean that you must never look at a bill, or never read a report, or never listen to a loved one. Life requires our practical presence. But there is a difference, there is a world of difference between looking from fear and looking from presence. The first looks at a thing and quivers before it. The second looks through it and sees God. The first sets up camp at the foot of appearances and then cries out to heaven. The second enters the inner chamber where heaven already is and then returns to the appearance with a calm that is not human. One is worship of the effect, the other is witnessing to the cause, and this is agency reversal. I am in a position to say this with some authority because I have watched in my own life and in the lives of those who have given themselves to this practice what happens when attention is brought home, where the I reverses from I, the fixer, to I am, the presence. The whole climate changes. The same phone call arrives, the same appointment holds its place on the calendar, the same body stands before the mirror, but the doer within has shifted, and so the fruit on the tree ripens at a different rate and with a different sweetness. What affected this? your cleverness, your analytic powers, your strong words. No, no. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Now remember this. Agency reversal does not produce inertia. It produces guidance. When the presence is recognized, the steps are revealed, not as speculation but as an inner rightness. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. You will find yourself calling this person and not that one, making this appointment and releasing the other, speaking a sentence you did not prepare, remaining silent at a point you would once have defended yourself, and all the while a peace, not yours, holding you up under your ribs. Then, afterward, others will say, "How fortunate!" You will know that fortune had nothing to do with it. The Father that seeth in secret rewarded openly. Let me make this intensely practical because I know how quickly the mind turns even spiritual words into a new system to be managed. The next time you notice yourself taking the spiritual temperature every 5 minutes, is it better yet? Is it worse? Is there progress? Am I safe? Stop. Not as a scold, but as one who has caught himself bowing to a cardboard idol. Turn within. Just that. Turn. Close the inner door. Even if you are on a bus, even if you are at your desk, close the door. Whisper within, "Father, thou knowest, I of mine own self can do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works." And then wait 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and listen, not for a sentence, but for a shift, a softening, a presence. That is the work. That is all the work. From that, action will arise without compulsion. Someone is going to say, "But if I do not work the problem, who will?" Let me answer plainly, the problem, as you name it, has no principle of its own. It is formation without foundation. It is a picture without substance. Your working on it gives it borrowed life. Your working in God, your abiding in the I Am, withdraws that loan. When the sun rises, shadows rearrange themselves without being chased. Do you see? Where I am, God is. And because that is true, what has no principle cannot stand exposure to principle. This is why we dare to say, and why we must remind ourselves even in the middle of the night, you will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. It sounds too simple until you do it. Then it sounds too holy to have been missed. Let me add, because I know how kindly and responsible your hearts are, that from this inner place you will not neglect duties. You will fulfill them better, with more compassion and less fear. You will meet the appointment with your hand in the Father's hand. You will write the check without tightness, or you will pick up the telephone and explain without shame, and doors you could not have planned will open where walls once appeared. This is not fantasy. This is the predictable fruitage of right causation. The outer answers are already included in the inner knowing of God, as the harvest is already included in the life of the seed. Know the life, and you know everything that concerns it, not in detail ahead of time, but in sufficiency in time. So if the human self is not the doer, what is our part? One thing. Attain the quiet where presence is felt. Make that your single necessary task, and let all else be added. Practice it at the red light. Practice it in the waiting room. Practice it before the meeting. Practice it when the pang comes in the night. 5 seconds of consent is not too little. It is the mustard seed of which the Master spoke. In that stillness, you are not creating God. You are recognizing God. You are not assembling an answer. You are standing in the answer. And then, listen, the answer will show itself in the language of your day, as peace first, then as right action, right timing, right relationship, right provision. The order is always the same. The cause is always the same. The doer is always the same. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Beautiful. Now remember this. Keep it, live by it, and you will find that the burden you thought was life was only the weight of a role you were never assigned, and the life you could not carry will carry you. Let us take up now the name, because the name is the hinge on which identity turns. I am going to say something that sounds simple, and then we will live with it until it becomes living truth. There are two ways in which I am is used. The first is the way we learned at the cradle and in the mirror. I am this body, I am this story, I am this family, I am this title, I am this fear, this diagnosis, this bank account, this sorrow, this hope. That I am is a labeler. It tags conditions and claims them. It is the personal sense, good, bad, or mixed as the day may be, and being personal, it must work, must defend, must seek, must fix. And then there is another I am, not whispered by personality, but radiating as presence. It does not label conditions. It is the light by which conditions are seen. It is the Christ awareness within that says, not boastfully but factually, I and the Father are one. One voice uses I am to stick identity onto appearances. The other is identity itself, announcing itself where we had been busy with our pronouns. Now, I am going to interrupt myself because I know the temptation that arises the moment we hear this, and it is a tender temptation. We rush to use the name. We take I am the way we once took vitamins to get I am strong, I am rich, I am at peace, I am healed. And then, when the weather of circumstance does not shift on our timetable, the old embarrassment returns. Please see the mistake with kindness. The personal sense borrowed a divine name to bolster itself. It is like trying to hire the sun to make our window bright. We move about the curtains and adjust the blinds and petition the light. But the solution is always interior, open. I am does not become medicine in the mouth of personality. I am is recognition. It heals because in recognizing it, the self that would be sick or poor or afraid yields, and there is only presence showing forth as whatever is needed. Do you notice the pivot? It is subtle and it is everything. I am seeking God becomes I am that which I am seeking. Do not let ego steal that sentence. That is not inflation. That is discovery. The seeker dissolves into the scene. The wave, talking of ocean and rushing to meet it, discovers it was ocean waving all along. And the relief that comes is not the relief of conquest. It is the relief of identity. The heart stops panting. The mind does not need to declare itself taller. It rests because it has found its level, the level of I am, presence being itself where you are. Now remember this because it will save you from several holy pitfalls. The human mind will try to make I am into a lever. It will try to command God with syllables as if the infinite were a big but manageable power switch. This leads straight to strain. It will try to turn realization into a merit badge, as if the one who has more realizations has earned a higher rank. This leads straight to superiority, which is only fear wearing a crown. It will try to time the fruit. I said the words. Where is the outcome? This leads straight to anxiety, which is the confession that we secretly believe in effects as causes. No, no. The name is not a charm. It is the truth of being. We do not get better at using it. We get humbler at letting it use us. How will you know whether you are touching the impersonal I am or puffing at the personal I? There is an interior test, and it is immediate. If the use of I am tightens the jaw, if it makes you feel taller than your brother, if it keeps you watching the clock of demonstration, it is personal. It is the old foreman in a new suit. But if the remembrance of I am loosens the breath, if it lowers your shoulders and opens your chest, as if you had just put down a load you did not know you were carrying, if it makes you kinder without trying, quieter without forcing, then it is spiritual. Strain belongs to the self that is climbing. Softness belongs to the presence that already is. Superiority belongs to comparison. Quiet confidence belongs to oneness. Anxiety belongs to the watcher of effects. Stillness belongs to the knower of cause. Let me let you in on a secret that the saints and the sinners have equal right to. The name I am is safest on the inside of silence. When you go within and you do not speak it with the lips, but allow it to announce itself as a felt isness. Here, now, closer than breath, the pronoun I begins to shed its labels. Do you see? You still answer to your name. You still go to the office. You still wash the dishes. But the meaning of I has changed without changing its sound. It is like the window when the sun has risen. The glass is still there, and yet what matters now is the light. Or it is like the instrument that has been tuned. The same wood, the same strings, but another world comes through it. I remains, but it is no longer a personal claimant. It is the avenue for presence. You will be surprised, and I mean it, at how the vocabulary of your heart shifts when the name is recognized rather than asserted. The sentences shorten. The need to convince or to announce yourself fades. Father, thou art here will be enough. Or just, I am, breathed wordlessly, will be too much for the mind to manage and just right for the soul to rest in. And with that resting, fruit begins. Not immediately as spectacle, immediately as peace, and then as guidance, and then, almost shyly, as harmony in the places that had been discord. A letter comes, a worry thins, a relationship softens, a body yields where it had held. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, and you will know that the name was not used. It was honored. Let me address the fear that comes to fine souls, because it came to me and it has come to many of you. You will say, if I stop asserting, will I not disappear? If I let I become impersonal, who will love my children? Who will run my shop? Who will stand up for what is right? Hear me gently. When the personal self loosens its grip on I, it does not vanish into abstraction. It flowers into service. You will not love less. You will love better with less fear of loss, because you will be loving from the light and not from a clutch. You will not neglect your work. You will be steadied in it, guided in it, and often simplified in it, because the one being it has more wisdom than the one managing it. Not I, but Christ liveth in me is not the abdication of life. It is the only true living of it. Now I am going to ask you to try something very small, not as a technique to get anything, but as an opening to recognize what is. Close the inner door for a few breaths. You do not have to stop thinking. You do not have to feel holy. Just become willing to touch the wordless center. Let the thought come, not from the mouth, but from the heart. I am. Do not finish it. Do not add a predicate. Leave it vast. I am. Do you notice a softening, a widening, a little current of quiet? If you do not, that is fine. Stay 3 more breaths and see if the edge of you blurs just a fraction. If a thought rises to use this moment to secure a result, smile at it as you would at a helpful but mistaken child, and return to I am. In seconds or in minutes there will be the faintest taste of anonymity, that holy anonymity in which you know yourself without a story. That is the beginning. That is the name functioning as presence. This is where we are going together next, to practice the art of going within so that I am is felt as presence and not merely thought as doctrine. We will learn, and it is an art learnable by anyone who breathes, how to close the door without fleeing the world, how to abide in the inner sanctuary while washing the dishes and making the call, how to let identity rest as Christ within and watch, often with childlike surprise, as the outer rearranges itself without your pushing. But for tonight, keep this one safeguard and take it into your pillow. Do not glue I am to a condition. Hallow the name by leaving it whole. Let it hallow you in return. Now remember this, and I am saying it to you, with tenderness and with authority born of watching it, in city after city and in house after house. I am becomes healing when it is recognized as presence, not asserted as personality. If you will hold to that, even imperfectly, even for 5 seconds at a red light or in the dark before sleep, the government will shift from the little I that strives to the great I am that is. And in that shift, there will be peace. And where there is peace, healing is already on the way. Let us learn the simple art now, not as something exotic, but as obedience to a plain instruction. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Do you see? There is nothing theatrical in this. It is not a performance. It is as natural as breathing and as humble as washing a cup. We are not leaving life. We are meeting life where it always is, within. The door closes not to escape the world, but to welcome the world maker. Sit as you are, or stand as you are, or walk as you are, if that is necessary. If you can, let the eyelids come down. Halfway is fine. Let the shoulders drop as if a friend had just taken a parcel from your arms. Loosen the jaw just a little. One breath, just one, slower than the others. This is not trance. This is consent. Now inside, say nothing out loud, but allow the heart to whisper what we have been shown. Father, thou art here. Or simply, I am. Do not decorate it. Do not demand with it. Just acknowledge. That is shutting the inner door. And I am going to interrupt myself because someone is asking, is that all? Yes, that is all at the beginning, and it is enough. Meditation is an art that can be learned, as surely as a child learns to find a note on the piano. At first, there are hints. A half second when the mind stops chasing its tail, a little widening under the breastbone, a softening of the forehead. Then there are imperfect attempts, very human and very fine. You close your eyes and plan the afternoon. You say, I am, and remember a bill. You whisper, Father, thou art here and here in the other room of the mind, a small argument. Do not scold. Do not label it failure. 5 seconds of real consent is success. 30 seconds is abundance. A minute is a feast. It grows, not because you push, but because you return. Let me guide you for a moment, and then you will know how to guide yourself anywhere, on a bus, in a waiting room, in the kitchen. We begin exactly as we did, a breath, a softening, an inward turning. Now do not attempt to blank the mind. We are not hunting silence with a club. We are consenting to presence, and quiet is the byproduct of that consent. Do you notice when you say within, I am, not as a sentence to get something, but as an acknowledgement of what is, that thought begins to slow of itself? Not all at once, not on command, but the rush becomes a stream. The stream becomes a current moving at a more merciful pace. Let it. Let thought be. We are not in argument with it. Allow attention to rest as a hand rests on a railing, in the sense of being, just being, without adjectives. Aware, here is. If a thought rises and wants to help, perhaps if I say, I am this, I will feel better. Smile at it as you would at a child offering to carry a trunk. Thank it and put it down. Return to I am. If a worry enters, do not wrestle. Do not read it. Do not feed it. Just as a listener at a symphony allows a cough in the balcony and keeps listening, you keep your ear inwardly attuned to presence. In a moment, do you notice, a little peace gathers. It is not manufactured. You could not have made it if you tried all afternoon. It arrives. It is given. This is the sign that the door is, at least for now, closed to appearances and open to reality. Now remember this, and I am saying it to save you a world of fatigue. You are not trying to produce quiet as a lever to budge God. We do not get God with silence. We meet God in the silence that God's nearness produces. "Be still and know that I am God," is not an order to employ stillness as a weapon. It is an unveiling. In the knowing of God, stillness appears. So if, in your few minutes, the mind chatters and quiet comes only in thin slices, bless those slices. That is presence making room for itself. You stay only so long as it is natural, and then you return to your task. But you take something with you, an afterglow, a gentle temperature of soul, and that is the point. Someone is going to say, "But my life is busy, meetings, children, calls, and I cannot sit down every hour to close a door." Then do it with eyes open, wherever you stand. In the hall, hand on the knob, one breath, and the inner whisper, "Father, thou art here." In traffic, eyes on the road, inward consent, "I am." At the sink, in the market, before you answer the phone, the outer has not ceased, the inner has remembered. This is not an escape hatch. It is a way of presence inside presence. When you do this, the same world comes to you, but it meets a different you, the you who is an avenue for presence, and the world knows it, though it cannot name it. The conversation is gentler. The timing is kinder. Problems that had seemed to have a grip find no hand to hold. Beautiful. I am letting you in on a secret that, when trusted, will change the climate of your days. If you will practice brief, sincere turnings, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, you will find that the long sittings become easier because the faculty of attention has been trained to return and return again without drama. The spiritual life is not powered by marathon willpower. It is nourished by frequent, humble consent. Any one of us, high or low, busy or retired, saint or sinner, can consent. Anyone can say within, "I can of mine own self do nothing," and then rest in the one who does. Now I must correct an expectation as kindly as I can. Do not ask these moments to produce fireworks. Do not rate them by how beautiful they feel. Some days there will be sweetness. Some days there will be dryness. The dryness is not absence. It is your fidelity walking without a treat. It counts. It builds the roadway by which the presence will, often suddenly, fill and flood your awareness. And when it does, you will know it not by sight, not by phrase, but by peace. Not your peace. The peace of God that passes understanding. The shoulders will drop without your telling them. The breath will even. The reactive word will not leave your tongue. And you will recognize God is on the field, though the eye beholds him not. Make a little rule for yourself, not as a law to break your back, but as a rhythm to soothe your heart. Upon waking, 1 minute. Before the first call, 30 seconds. When you feel the tug of fear, immediately, 10 seconds. Before sleep, a minute or two with "I am" left whole and holy. If you miss a time, do not make a case out of it. Go on. This is an art, remember, and art grows by love more than by scolding. You will discover, almost to your surprise, that the mind comes to enjoy its rest as much as the body enjoys the chair. It seeks it out. It is drawn. And now, because I want you to be skillful not only in turning within, but in reading the evidence of that turning, let me gently plant the next seed. The first fruit of contact is peace. Peace is the language by which the invisible tells you, "I am here." When you feel it, however faintly, however briefly, you need not ask, "Is anything happening?" The happening is underway. The Father which seeth in secret is already rewarding openly, though the outer form of that reward may still be arranging itself by the lines of least resistance. Our task is not to pry at the seed. Our task is to keep consenting to the life within it. So we will keep at this, closing the door in living rooms and offices, in kitchens and cars, without fleeing a single duty or denying a single appointment. We are not going out of the world. We are letting the world be held from within by the one who made it. This is the art of going within. It is simple, it is learnable, and it is yours. Keep at it and notice. Peace appears, not as your achievement, but as presence announcing itself. And from there, as night follows evening, the evidence will gather. But we will speak of that in its turn. For now, shut the door, even for 5 seconds, and know, the life you meet within will meet you, and then will meet your day for you. Let us look now at this peace, not as a sentiment to admire, but as the very evidence that the invisible has come to the field. I am not speaking of a human cheerfulness, not a pep talk inside the skull, not a mood we drum up by saying nice things to ourselves. No, I am speaking of the sudden lessening of inward friction that arrives of itself when we have made the little consent. I am speaking of the quiet that is not ours and yet fills us. Do you notice, without a single hand laid on the outer world, without a phone call made or an argument rehearsed, the agitation begins to ebb, the shoulders go down, the breath evens, the eyes soften. We did not command that. We could not have produced it by effort if we had tried for an hour. It arrived because I am was acknowledged, and the atmosphere changed. Now remember this, because it will be your compass. Peace is the operational criterion of contact. When that peace appears, whether for 30 seconds or for 3 minutes, you may know that the inner door is, for that moment, shut to appearances and open to reality. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you, not as the world measures it, not as the nervous system's little highs and lows, but as presence itself. This peace carries a tone of authority that does not strut, it is not noisy, it does not argue with the problem, it simply stands, and in its standing the false claim loses breath. Let me tell you why this heals, because I want you to understand what is happening while you are doing nothing. The peace that comes in contact is the native atmosphere of spiritual reality. In that atmosphere, fear cannot keep its color, error cannot keep its edge, lies cannot find a tongue. Do you remember how a harsh perfume seems strong in a closed room, but the moment you open the windows and the fresh air enters, it thins and goes? In the air of spirit, the odors of fear and lack and disease thin and go. They have no life in themselves. They were borrowing our belief, our attention, our fear. When peace comes, belief rests. Attention returns home. Fear loses its hire. Then the body and the mind, relieved of the lash, begin to align with a higher law. The heart rate answers. The digestion untwists. The inflamed word on the tongue never makes it into the air. Beautiful. I am going to interrupt myself to prevent a misunderstanding. Peace does not mean indifference. Peace is not a shrug. Peace is presence. It is not the denial of conditions. It is the denial of their authority over you. In that atmosphere, right action, when action is required, rises without panic. A call is made, but made from poise, not from dread. A doctor is seen, but seen from discernment, not from worship. A bill is paid, but paid from provision, not from a story of lack. The outer steps, when they come as fruit, not as frantic choreography. Do you see the difference? One strains to manufacture harmony, the other watches harmony reveal itself through natural doors. How will you know you are not fooling yourself? Peace can be gentle, so gentle that you might miss it if you are waiting for fireworks. Learn the taste. It may be as slight as the way a room sounds after a clock stops ticking. Something you had not noticed as burden suddenly is not there. Or it may be as simple as the moment when the desire to defend yourself evaporates, and the sentence you were ready to launch dissolves on the tongue. No trumpet, no halo, but peace. And if you say, "Is that all?" I will answer, that is the seed. Inside that stillness, the Father is doing his work. The Father which seeth in secret rewardeth openly, but he does not consult our stopwatch or our craving for spectacle. Do you notice how, when that peace is present, The mind loses interest in diagnosing, and a quiet certainty rises. It is not a certainty about outcomes, it is a certainty of God. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and make God work. Be still and know. In the knowing, the stillness appears. In the stillness, the false is unmasked. In the unmasking, harmony has permission to show. This is why you have heard me say, and I will keep saying it until it is your own breath, you will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. The peace that is not yours is the knowing of God, eclipsing for a blessed moment the storytelling mind. Let me offer you a way to be honest with yourself about this. The next time you turn within, do not pry at heaven. Do not ask for a report card. Simply notice, has the temperature of the soul changed by a degree? Has the inner weather shifted from wind to a gentler air? If yes, even slightly, rest there. That is prayer answered at its root. If not yet, do not fight. Linger for a breath or two more with I am, and then quietly go on with your task. The Father does not need your strain. He needs only your consent. And sooner than you expect, perhaps while you are stirring a pot or walking across a parking lot, the peace unannounced will arrive and sit down within you. When it does, do not clutch at it. Smile at it. Live from it. Now we must bridge, not hastily, but naturally, from this first fruit to the fruits you can count and touch. Peace will begin to show itself in the body as restfulness, and restfulness is the condition in which the tissues of the body hear a truer message. Pain eases, functions balance. The nervous system, which had been marching to the drum of fear, hears the music of order. Peace will begin to show itself in supply as right timing and sufficiency. Unexpected openings, reduced waste, a forgotten invoice paid, the appetite for showy spending quietly diminished. Peace will begin to show itself in relationships as softened voices, as patience where you swore you had none left, as the miracle of listening. But please do not make these the motive, or you will turn the name into a tool and the practice into a contract. Make peace the motive only as acknowledgement. Father, thy peace is here. Thy will is its own fulfillment. I speak now with the authority that years and houses and letters have given me. When peace appears, healing is underway. Do you doubt it? Then watch. Not for fireworks. Watch for the quiet rearrangements, the easy yeses, the arguments that never occur, the errands that go twice as fast without hurry, the night's sleep taken without tablets or tallying. Watch the mind discover that it has no appetite for its former worries. That is fruit. That is the Father rewarding openly that which began as an invisible consent. Take this with you into your next turn within. Do not hunt for peace as game. Invite it by recognition. I can of mine own self do nothing. Then let the breath fall into its own rhythm. Let the thought I am be whole and unadorned. When the peace arrives, first as a mist, then as a climate, know what it means. God is on the field. The government has shifted from personal agency to presence, and because that is so, health will answer, supply will answer, friendship will answer, not because you worked them, but because the one being you is expressing its own order. This is experiential proof, and it is as near as your next consent. Let us be very plain now, because I know that hearts are asking, how does this peace we have spoken of become the cooling of a fever, the clearing of a bill, the mending of a friendship? And I am going to let you in on the way it works, not as theory, but as the pattern I have watched in homes and offices and hospital rooms and kitchens. The sequence is always the same, though the forms vary. Inner contact, then a quiet confidence, not noisy, not dramatic, then either a wiser action is given you or no action at all is required. And then, without strain and often to your surprise, the outer adjusts itself as if it had been waiting all this time for the signal. That is all. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. The contact is the signal. The peace is the authority. The fruit appears by the law of its root. Take the body first, because pain will always try to make a case for urgency, and urgency is the enemy of realization. Suppose a symptom rises, a tightening in the chest, a heat in the brow, the familiar stab in the lower back, the restless sleep that comes at 3 a.m. and will not let go. The personal I that we have known rushes to the cabinet, rushes to the extra pillow, rushes to the internet diagnosis, rushes to fear. I am not scolding, I am describing what I have done and what you have done. But now, because we have learned something truer, we set down the rush for a moment, not forever, not defiantly, just for a moment, and we enter the closet within. Father, thou art here, I am. No pleading, no bargaining, just acknowledgement. And do you notice? The breath that would not come begins to lengthen. The mind that was scanning, loses interest in its own scanning. The fright that was as loud as a siren becomes a radio in another room. In that softened air, the body hears a new message. It is not an order, we barked at it. It is the tone of spirit, and tissues answer tone more surely than they answer threats. Sometimes that is all, and the pain goes as night lifts its color off the lawn. Sometimes a simple step rises, water, rest, a call, and it is taken without panic. The very same step taken from fear binds. The step taken from peace blesses. Do you see the difference? We do not fight symptoms. We reverse agency. We let presence set the atmosphere, and the body, grateful to be out from under the lash of fear, returns to order by the law of its source. Now turn to supply, because economics in the human story is so often a tale of grasping hands and tightened jaws. The personal sense, when it believes in lack, begins to clutch. It bargains harder, it schemes longer, it counts and recounts, and is twice as tired at the end of the day. And the pile on the desk has not thinned. Grasping tightens lack as surely as a clenched fist cannot receive. The spiritual sequence is the opposite. The moment you feel the nerves begin to gather in the belly at the thought of bills, turn, not to a spreadsheet first, but to the sanctuary. Father, thou art here, I am. Let the fist open in the soul. Let the government return to where it belongs. Peace comes, perhaps only a degree at first. In that air, something new happens. Waste is seen and quietly dismissed. A purchase that was about fear simply has no taste now. A forgotten invoice is found and sent. A debt you had dreaded calling about is, without drama, discussed, and terms are eased. Or, and this I have watched 1,000 times, without your engineering it, a channel you did not even have on your list opens, an order renewed, a client returns, a small windfall, a fee forgiven, a timing that keeps you from an expense you would have made yesterday. You cannot make these patterns by worry. You can meet them by contact. The Father which seeth in secret rewardeth openly, but he does not reward our fright, he rewards our acknowledgement. Let us come closer still, because the tenderest wounds are often in the realm of friendship and family, where the personal I is most eager to defend and to win. I must set them straight. I must not be taken for granted. I must have the last word. And harmony flees before that banner like a bird before a shout. Now remember this, as long as I requires a victory, love is absent. Love is not a tactic. Love is a state, and it is the state that appears when I am is impersonal, when identity is returned to presence. So the moment you feel the case forming in the mouth, the proof brief rising, shut the inner door. Father, thou art here, I am. Stay 30 seconds, a minute, until the temperature drops. You are not suppressing yourself. You are surrendering the false self that loves to be right. And then, do you notice, what rises is not a strategy but a tone. The ear opens, the voice softens. Sometimes the sentence you were going to say simply walks away. Sometimes a new sentence, cleaner and kinder and yet truer than your old one, presents itself. And marvel of marvels, the other heart hears the tone before it hears the words. They feel seen, they stop bristling. The grievance that seemed cast in iron shows itself to be wax. This is not your cleverness, this is fruit. This is the impersonal Christ as your very being dissolving the mask of separation. Where I am, God is, and where God is as your awareness, there is no other to fight. I am going to interrupt myself because some will say, then I must watch for these results. I will time them. I will take their measure and chart their speed. No, no. That is to turn the plant out of its soil twice a day to see how the roots are doing. We do not watch the plant grow. We water the root. We keep the soil soft and moist by quiet, by recognition, by remembrance. Growth is God's department, and growth keeps its own calendar. First the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. Do you see the wisdom of that? If today you have peace enough to keep silent when you would have struck, blade. If tomorrow the bill is paid without groaning, ear. If next month the body is doing its work without supervision, full corn in the ear, but you did not and could not manage any of it from the outside in. Outer harmony is not manufactured. It is the visible fruit of invisible contact. Now remember this and let it settle deeply, because it will save you from a weariness that has no place in this way. Your part is always the same part. Turn, acknowledge, consent, rest. In that rest, a quiet confidence appears. It is not a guarantee of outcomes. It is the certainty of God. From that confidence, wisdom rises as step or as no step, and you will find yourself either doing what is to be done without fever or doing nothing at all without guilt. And then, in their time and manner, the forms respond because you have ceased to frighten them with your clutching and have ceased to empower them with your fear. You are no longer trying to lift life with the little lever of personal will. You have allowed life to be itself where you are. Try this for the next 24 hours and do it secretly. If the body speaks, listen to presence first, and then act as led. If the account speaks, acknowledge presence first, and then count as led. If the relationship speaks, bow to presence first, and then speak as led, or be still as led. Do you notice the order? Presence first, then any step. And when the sweet evidences begin to arrive, a lighter morning in the bones, a check you were not expecting, a conversation that turns out to be gentler than your dread, do not crow over them. Smile and say within, Father, thou hast rewarded openly what was done in secret, and go back to the root. Water again with remembrance. Keep the soil soft with I am, left whole and holy. In that way, fruit will not be a surprise guest, but a familiar child in the house, arriving in season, growing as it must, needing only the quiet climate of your consenting heart. Now we must let you in on a secret that, if you will trust it, will save you from a great deal of wear and tear. It is this: the problem dissolves when it is no longer granted the dignity of power. Immediately, I hear the heart protest, but if I don't wrestle it, won't it win? No, no. Appearances borrow their breath from our fear and our fascination. They are like shadows on a wall that seem to have substance only while our gaze is fixed and our heart is racing. The moment you stop fighting them and turn on the light within, they show themselves for what they are. Forms without authority, claims without law. Resist not evil. Do you see? That is not a counsel to approve of evil. It is the wisdom of not crowning it with the throne of your attention. Now I am going to interrupt myself because I can hear another honest question. Isn't non-resistance just passivity? Am I to accept sickness, lack, injustice as realities and say, what will be, will be? Not at all. Non-resistance is not the acceptance of appearance as law. It is the refusal to battle appearance as if it were power. That is spiritual intelligence. We do not bargain with shadows, and we do not box with them. We turn, as we have learned, to the inner sanctuary where the only law is God. And in that light, the shadow has no career. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Not stand still and be a doormat. Stand still and witness the authority that is not yours enact its own order. How then do we drop the problem? Let me give you the mechanics because I want you to be skillful. First, we acknowledge that a claim has knocked at the door. Pain in the body, a letter with large red type, a voice that arrives sharp and accusing. We do not pretend it is not there. Pretense is just fear in costume. We name it for what it is, an appearance, a report of the senses, not a law of God, and we withdraw consent. How? By returning quietly and immediately to the inner word. Father, thou art here. I am. No arguing, no pleading, no thought warfare, just the turning. The claim will try again. It will rattle the knob. It will whisper, if you let go of me, I will become worse. Smile at its theater. Return 10 times in 10 minutes, if needed, and then again when it circles back in an hour. Each return is not you being stubborn. Each return is the dissolution of personal doership. I can of mine own self do nothing. And because that is so, I do not need to argue a case or push a river. I need only to let presence be what it is where I am. In this non-resistance there is a strength you have not known in your fighting days. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Confidence in what? Not in your ability to posture above the problem. Confidence in the indwelling Christ as cause. In that atmosphere, do you notice how the problem loses its appetite? The mind, which had been endlessly diagnosing and arranging, forgets to diagnose. The body, which had been braced against a blow, unbraces. The creditor becomes a human being instead of a monster, and the call is made, if it is to be made, from poise. Or no call is made, and in the interval, an unexpected softening occurs on the other end. The same outer step done in resistance binds you. The same step done in peace blesses you. Non-resistance is not inactivity. It is the end of making a god of the problem. Some will say, but I did it once and nothing happened. Do you see the trap? You did not turn to live, you turned to test. The kingdom is not a trick door we push to see if it clicks. It is a life we live by returning, returning, returning until the sense of a personal fixer fades out like a radio losing a station. Then the presence that has always been the real life of you is allowed to show itself as the law of your body, of your supply, of your family. Sometimes the effect is immediate. I have seen a fever break in the space of one quiet acknowledgement. Sometimes it is first the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. Time as we measure it is not the governor here. Practice is, fidelity is. Will you come back to the secret place the 50th time as freshly as you came the first? That is the question, and do not make drama of that. Make rhythm, one breath. Father, thou art here, I am. Then back to the task, then again, then again. Let me give you a picture that may help. If you walk into a room buzzing with flies and you take a stick and begin to swing, you will tire, and the flies, though they may scatter, will return. But if you open the window and let in the morning, the flies find no climate to breed their annoyance. You did not accept flies as permanent citizens. You did not write a constitution for flies. You changed the air. Non-resistance is the opening of the window. The air is the presence. And in that air, the problem, whether named illness or lack or discord, finds no hospitality. Now remember this because it will save you from self-accusation. While you are withdrawing consent, the thought will come, you are being irresponsible. Real adults attack their problems. No, Real adults learn which kingdom governs. We are not children refusing to clean a room. We are heirs remembering the government is upon his shoulder. The battle is not yours, but God's. When an outer step is needed, it will appear in you without heat. You will find yourself dialing a number, making a note, preparing a document, resting the body, seeing a practitioner, consulting a book, but you will do it without the fever that turns wise steps into bondage. And if no step arises, you will not invent steps to keep the ego entertained. You will trust the invisible to make its own ways known. Do you doubt the fruit of this? Then try it where you are being most tempted to clench. The next time a sentence of defense leaps to your tongue, drop it and drop into I am. The next time a twinge in the body shouts its name, acknowledge it as a knock and then pull the shade of attention back to the light. The next time you count and come up short, count presence before you count paper, and watch, gently, without stopwatch, how the harsh edges begin to round, how the exact step that is yours comes, how what you feared would triumph simply runs out of breath for lack of your belief. I am letting you in on another small secret. You do not have to do this perfectly to have it work. 5 seconds of honest non-resistance weakens the tyranny of fear more than 5 hours of wrestling. The presence needs only the smallest opening to declare itself. And this is why, as we move to our next truth together, you must know there is no secret class admitted to this. High or low, rich or poor, busy or retired, saint or sinner, anyone can open the window. Anyone can say, I can of mine own self do nothing, and mean it for 10 seconds. Anyone can refuse to crown a problem with the title of power. And when you do, however unskillfully at first, the same law rewards you openly, not because you are chosen, but because the presence is already within you, waiting for consent. Resist not, stand still, return within. Leave the problem where it never belonged, in the hands of the invisible, while you live from the peace that is not yours and yet fills you. And then watch, as night yields to morning, how the forms remember their maker without your whip. Since I have just said to you, anyone can open the window, let us be very plain and take the sting out of a doubt that haunts sincere hearts. It is an impossibility that God should take me out of the millions upon this earth and give me something not available to everybody else. No, God is no respecter of persons. The kingdom of God is within you, not within the clergyman and not the layman, not within the saint and not the sinner in any discriminatory sense, but within every one of us as the very life of us, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. If this were a private secret handed down to a few, it would collapse under its own injustice. But it is not a secret. It is a presence, and presence by nature is universal. Now I am going to interrupt myself because already I can hear a tender voice saying, if it is for all, why do some seem to enter easily while I struggle? Do not condemn yourself. We are not in a contest. There is such a thing as rhythm in spiritual practice. Some sit down, close the eyes, and the mind, like a trained bird, comes to the hand at once. Others sit, and the mind hops from perch to perch, and the words feel wooden. Do you know the difference? Only this. One has discovered his rhythm, perhaps from other lives of devotion, if you will, perhaps from this life's persistence. The other is learning the tempo. Think of music. There are those who sit at a piano and find a melody with the first touch, and there are those who begin with scales and fingerings and stumble. With practice, the scales become music in every case. Meditation is an art that can be learned. I say that to you with authority because I have watched men and women across countries and years discover their own cadence and, with it, discover the same peace and the same fruit. Now remember this, because it will lift a heavy burden from your shoulders. Worthiness is not the gate. Recognition is the gate. This has nothing to do with deserving. It has to do with acknowledging what is already true. You may have a ledger in your head full of past mistakes, resentments, failures, and promises broken. Throw the ledger out. It has no jurisdiction in the inner court. Whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. Freely. The door to the secret place does not ask your credentials. It opens at the lightest knock of consent. One breath of, "Father, thou art here, I am," honestly offered, is welcomed as royally in the heart of a criminal as in the heart of a monk. I am letting you in on the secret. The presence is already within you, and your turning does not persuade God to come. It permits you to notice that God never left. And do not imagine that the universality of this somehow cheapens it. Truth is not made common by being for all. It is made trustworthy. If only a few could enter, we would live forever asking if we were in the few. That anxiety would poison the well. But when you hear, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden," you may lay down the whip of comparison. You may be awkward and still be welcome. You may be weary and still be welcome. You may be in pain and still be welcome. And I tell you, that very welcome is medicine. We are gathered then, not to admire teachings as ornaments, but to live them quietly and reverently in the intervals of the day. I do not ask you to become spiritual exhibitionists. Keep the finger upon the lip. Do it in secret. Go within. Shut the door, even if the door is shut for 20 seconds between tasks, and acknowledge, where I am, God is. Where God is, I am. In those small, honest returns, you belong to a community that stretches beyond walls and denominations, a community of recognition. We meet, yes, for instruction and for the warmth of being together in the truth. But the living of it, the proof of it, happens at the sink, at the desk, on the bus, at the bedside, in the quiet, just before the reply you were going to send. That is our fellowship, quiet, practical, faithful. Let me be even more explicit because I want to free you from the last claw of self-doubt. Do not measure your standing by how quickly the fireworks come. Measure only by your willingness to return. 5 seconds honestly given is not a small gift. It is seed, and the law of seed does not mock you. First the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. The blade in you might be simply the relief of a single sigh, the interruption of a harsh word, a softening in the belly when you think of a bill. That is universal grace appearing in a very particular you. Do you see? There is no one left out of this possibility because there is no one left out of God. By now, I think I can say with a great deal of authority what I have seen from Honolulu to New York and over the seas. When a human being, any human being, turns within, even clumsily, and yields a degree of agency to the Father within, fruit follows. It may be sweet and obvious, it may be quiet as dew, but it follows. High or low, rich or poor, educated or not at all, churched or allergic to churches, no matter. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, and he has no favorites. The only condition is recognition, and the only practice is remembrance. So then let us accept our place in this universal household and take up our simple rule together, not as a vow that frightens, but as a companionship that steadies. In a moment, as we close our time, we will gather these threads into a daily way of being, moment by moment, Monday as holy as Sunday, so that I am ceases to be a word and becomes the felt identity living as you. We will not try to be spiritual, we will remember spirit. We will not try to force outcomes, we will abide in presence. And as we do, identity itself will reverse its polarity. The personal I that was always tired will retire, and the impersonal I am that was always here will take its rightful government. That is the promise, and because the presence is universal, it is your promise as surely as it is mine. Now remember this and let it stand in you like a bell, because presence is within all, realization is available to all. Take that as your assurance. Take it as your permission. Take it as your marching order, not to parade, but to return quietly, often, faithfully, until peace is not a visitor, but the climate, and fruit is not a surprise, but a way of life. We will make it plain and practical in our closing, and you will see that your very next hour is holy ground. Now we must make this plain and practical, because if truth is to bless us, it must bless us in the midst of Monday. It is a beautiful thing to sit here in this atmosphere and feel the quiet, but it is not for the room. It is for the kitchen, for the office, for the store, for the street, for the very next conversation you are to have. So let us adopt a simple rule of life, a rule that does not strain, does not demand heroics, and yet, if you will keep it, will alter the climate of your hours. We will not set ourselves to great lengths of meditation to prove our seriousness. We will set ourselves to short, frequent returns to presence until remembrance becomes natural. In other words, we will build a rhythm. Let me give it to you simply. Upon waking, do not reach for the world. Reach within. Before the hand touches the lamp or the radio or the book by the bed, let the heart touch its home. Father, thou art here. I am. Do not turn it into a performance. 10 seconds. 20. A minute if it gives itself. That is all. You are not trying to make God come. You are acknowledging that God is. Then, before the day's first call, whether business or family, stop outside the door of that moment and return again. Father, thou art here. I am. And then before you eat, not as a ritual to sanctify food, but as a remembrance that life is the only food and the source of every crumb, go within. And then, at the first sign of fear, do not wait until it is a bonfire. When you feel the small tightening in the belly, the little chill behind the eyes, the hurried counting, the sentence that wants to leap out and defend itself, stop, turn, close the inner door. Father, thou art here. I am. Do not argue. Do not collect statements. Acknowledge and be still. And again, before you close your eyes at night, refuse to let the world be your last touch. Let the kingdom within be the last air you breathe. These few pauses, 3, 5, 7 in a day, as you find your rhythm, are better than an hour of grinding at it once. Short, honest, frequent. That is our rule. Now I am going to interrupt myself to say this to you because it will save you from failure thinking. If you forget, begin again. If you remember only twice in a day, begin again the next. There is no scorecard in heaven. We are not building spiritual reputation. We are returning to our reality. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, and he does not time you with a stopwatch. He looks upon consent, upon the turning of the heart, and that is enough to open a window through which grace may move. We must speak also of secrecy, because without it the sweetness goes out of the practice. Keep a finger on the lip. Do not make a show of this. Do not announce to the table that you are communing. Do not tell your friends that you are practicing presence. Keep it tucked away in the fold of the heart. Pray in secret. If fruit appears, and it will, let the fruit speak for you. Let a softer voice, a calmer step, a bill that clears, a pain that gentles, a friendship that warms be your testimony. The showy thing belongs to the personal I, and we have learned by now what that I costs. We are finished with rehearsing our goodness to the world. We are choosing quiet, and in that quiet the Father announces himself better than we ever could. Some will ask, but what shall I say in these pauses? As little as possible. Begin with words if you must. We are not being harsh, but do not make a rosary out of words. Acknowledge, Father, thou art here. I am. Then be still and feel for the tone that is not yours. No commands, no bargaining, no self-hypnosis. Let the breath show you its unhurried length. Let the mind roam if it must. You are not chasing thoughts around a pen. Your only task is to sit with the fact God is here as the I am of me. In 5 seconds, in 10, you will know when the air has changed, even slightly. That is all you are waiting for. Then you go about the business of the hour as you are led, either with a step to take or with the grace to take no step without guilt. Let me sketch for you the spine of what we have walked together so that your Monday has a simple map. We began where we all live, with a personal I that is always tired, always worried, always pushing and arranging and diagnosing. That I tried to heal and found the work to be struggle. Then we heard the great relocation of cause. The kingdom of God is within you. Where I am, God is. We reversed agency. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. From that reversal, meditation ceased to be a technique and became an art of recognition. And in that art, a peace appeared, not ours, yet filling us. And from that peace, fruit began to show in body and business and home. Not manufactured, but as root become blossom become apple. Now we bind it with a rule. Keep I am impersonal by remembrance, and remembrance frequent by simple pauses. That is the whole of it. Do you see how humane it is? How kind? Now remember this, because it is the guard on the door of your practice. Do not let the personal I steal the holy name and use it to prop itself up. We are not to strut about saying, I am strong, I am rich, I am right, in the old tone, calling it spiritual. No, that is costume change, not conversion. I am is not personality asserting itself. I am is presence acknowledging itself where you are. When you speak the word, let it be reverent and inward. Let it be the end of striving, not the beginning of a new campaign. In that way, the holy name returns to its rightful use, the recognition that the life that lives itself is the life of you, and it needs no help from your boasting. You will find, as you keep this simple rule, that the timings will begin to arrange themselves for you. The pause will occur to you just as the email arrives that would have snared you. The inward turning will happen as you lift the fork, and gratitude will be food enough for the hurry that was about to drive your meal. The inner door will close almost of its own when the first chill of fear touches your spine, and the fear will not have time to make a nest. Do not congratulate yourself. Smile and know that the rhythm is finding you as much as you are finding it. Meditation, I have said to you, is an art that can be learned, but then there comes a grace where the art becomes a life, and you are remembering without trying to remember. Use the scripture as a bell if it helps. A line is enough. Be still and know that I am God. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he shall direct thy paths. You can live a week on one such line if you do not try to use it to get things, but rather to return to the one thing, whisper it within, then let it fall away into silence. The silence is the sanctuary. The words are only the threshold. And please, be tender with yourselves as you begin. The old habit of being your own hero will rise and tell you that you are not doing enough, not long enough, not earnestly enough. Excuse me, but drop that. One honest look inward is a universe away from your old way, and heaven notices. 5 seconds received is better than 5 minutes strained. You are not auditioning for God. You are consenting to God. You are not presenting a case. You are bowing to presence. Do you see how restful that is? There will be days when the fruit is obvious and days when it seems hidden. On the hidden days, keep the rule. Keep it secretly. Keep it kindly. Keep it as you would tend a lamp in the night, not anxious, simply faithful. The law is sure, even when the weather changes. First the blade, then the ear, after that, the full corn in the ear. If today's blade is a single softened response, welcome it. If tomorrow's ear is a check that was delayed now appearing, receive it without triumph. If next week's full corn is a body moving about its business unsupervised by fear, give thanks and return again. Root to fruit, fruit to root. Presence first, then any step. This is how sustained healing appears, not in a burst of fireworks, but as the natural outcome of sustained remembrance. So we close our time not with an end, but with a beginning of rhythm. When we part, do not think of it as leaving one atmosphere for another. Carry this atmosphere within by a pause here, a pause there, until it ceases to be a pause and becomes the background music of your hours. I will not say to you, go forth and conquer. I will say to you, go within and consent. The work continues beyond these words. The teacher is within you. We will listen for what the Father within reveals in the next quiet moment, and then in the next, and in that way Monday is transfigured without ceasing to be Monday. Where you are, God is. Where God is, you are. Rest in that, return to that, and let that returning be your way of life. Then the peace that is not yours, and yet fills you, will be the first proof, and all else will follow as surely as morning follows night. Now remember this, and let it travel with you into the next hour. Sustained healing is the natural outcome of sustained remembrance. I am, not as your banner, but as the impersonal Christ presence living itself as you. We will meet there.